Structure of the document.
Again? For what we moved
No,
before?
no.
Not for where you did.
Correct.
Okay.
Tim's still let me know for sure, so I'll send everything out tomorrow. You're on. I have a form.
John not here.
John is not here. He is in
John
Philly.
will not be here.
Yes. He is in Philly. That's what he said. For 18 months.
You should just, the best way to do it is to announce on the record.
Yeah, I'll do that.
You're
So,
abstaining
I'm
from your.
Okay.
No, I can only do these summons, but I'll just ask you about
Yeah, I think that changed.
Yeah. I'm like, yes, I am.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I was good.
Oh, is that
I think that should not represent.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah. They dusted Daryl.
This, we don't need to do it.
Still
Yeah, they didn't give us a plan for
That's what I thought.
I just,
I
I
didn't
want
say
to give
that.
them enough. to
Assume
do
they
it.
have their zoning
Yeah,
matters.
but, yeah. But yeah, I think we can do that. Good.
Looks good. Congrats on the move.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I'd heard, I forget when I figured it out. I think I saw it like, you updated LinkedIn or something.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's a small gossip network, so. I'm
Well,
sure.
no, and I called Michelle, I was talking to her about something, and she's like, oh, yeah, yeah. I said, I didn't know.
Do we still have a quorum without Scott voting on the plan?
Yes.
Looks like it's 3:31 or 2. Call the meeting to order. We're able to recognize the quorum. Good. First item is public comment. Is there anyone here?
Yes, I'd like to say
Joe, please.
a few words. Again, I've commented before about of course, the agendas. The agendas look a lot better, but for a planning committee, we don't know what those items are about. We're talking planning committee, we should probably see some plans and some more detailed discussion subjects before, because I don't know if I want to make a public comment about those items. I don't know what the issue is about. Okay, so how am I going to comment? So that's one thing. The other thing is, again, I've asked this before about doing these meetings on Zoom. We have what I could call a cacophony of mask policy here. This is a room with no fresh air intake, zero. And we're asking the public to come here and expose themselves in order to participate. It's completely unfair. We don't have, your vaccination status is not a matter of public disclosure, so we don't know who is, who isn't, and even if it was, COVID is rising, and we just shouldn't do this. It doesn't cost for you guys to put a mask on. It really doesn't cost you. So, and keep some distancing and everything. You're also exposing the borough employees. There's no reason for doing this. So, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other public comment? Next item on the agenda is Wyomissing Hills Elementary School. Looks like we're going to be talking about the preliminary and final land development plan.
I mean, I do think we're finally at a position that
any deficiencies as far as what we talked about in past meetings?
There's nothing major out there, there's a couple of plan housekeeping items and normal agreements and those such things that remain open there.
Did they get the water part squared away, the stormwater?
Yes.
We're gonna take a look at the retention area.
Yep, that'll come.
I should give the planning commission an update that the school district reached out to me about 3 weeks ago to ask if there was a way we could allow them to start construction on some of the additions in advance of land development approval being granted because of the very tight timeline they are on for construction, needing certain spaces to be constructed in advance so that they can then shuffle students into that constructed space while they work on other areas. So, Chris and I did find a way to go back to the school district and give them approval to do that, subject to multiple conditions. One most important being that they still have to comply with all land development and get land development approval. So at next week's council meeting, council will be ratifying on the record, the borough's approval to allow the school district to do that outside of this plan not yet having been formally approved or reported.
And it wasn't approved to start all, it was
Yeah.
just,
Do we know, where did they land with the crossing at the access drive? Maybe we're gonna check and see if it was under another contract or plan project.
That's one of their open items that they're looking into, why, that was one of their items they requested, they wouldn't have resolved in time to meet the schedule. They wanted to push that down the road.
As long as it gets addressed at some time, I mean, they have a heavier lift of construction before they would do that.
Right, I mean, that, yeah, it should be near the end, I think.
And we could do it as an as-build or something, or design build, even, as long as it's still on the docket.
Is that covered under the improvements agreement?
Yes.
The crossing, okay, so there is provision in there for that.
So they would still be held to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just we don't have the details of, there were a couple of different options that we talked about last month, for them, which of the options they're gonna go.
yeah, I'm a little disappointed that they're not here, given the courtesy that.
I was kind of shocked they weren't here.
Because, I mean, the special privilege that we extended to them should not be a reason for them to not keep them.
I mean, they've not submitted, this is the last review letter that was issued from August 3rd. They've not submitted revised plans since July.
Right. They didn't submit any revised plans since they were here last. Since we talked to them last month.
Actually, the month before that, because we did not have it.
Right. You're right, it was July when we talked to them.
Do we need to have a revised plan moving forward?
I'm sorry?
Do we need to have a revised plan here to review before it moves forward?
I mean, that's up to you as to whether or not you're comfortable granting conditional final plan approval subject to all items in this letter being addressed to the satisfaction of staff. I think Jim would probably agree that crosswalk and that clear sight triangle is probably the biggest outstanding issue.
Yeah, definitely.
So are you, the PC, comfortable with, you know,
We need to see that.
leaving that up to staff review and approval, or do you wanna see what that final outcome is by the school before you grant conditional plan approval? Or recommend council grant conditional plan approval?
So the crosswalk though is the only outstanding item that is up there in that way.
Yeah, I wouldn't see anything else that, I don't think there's anything else open that could be a discussion item with the exception of that, the crosswalk and clear sight triangle.
And that, again, that would be part of the escrow, right, that we would include, so we're covered that if for some reason it doesn't get done, then
We'll do it
we
for
could
them.
do it, if, you know, as a last resort. I'd rather us not.
Yes. Yeah, I'd rather us not design the permit and build their crosswalk.
Right, exactly.
Are there any issues with your department on
No.
not having a plan, just having a verbal allocation of what they're planning on doing and improving?
I'm satisfied that it is at a stage where we can reasonably manage the project going forward. The agreements that my office prepares are going to be dependent upon cost estimates that Jim's office will review and approve, and those are really the outstanding legal matters as far as I'm concerned.
So it feels like we have it pinned down enough on that one item that it won't get away from us.
Yeah,
Or we could do it as, I mean, if that's the only open issue, you could make it that you wanna see that design before that goes in. Specifically bring that crosswalk back.
It's separated from the
Separate
rest.
that from the approval, so if the planning commission wants to look at that, let's bring that back here specifically for that point.
I think that's probably a good idea.
Right, because it sounds like there's some interest, I mean, there's a lot of discussion last meeting about where it was gonna go, and I think it might be worth having the planning commission weigh in on that final design.
Just based on, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, but I agree with Chris, if they were that much in a hurry, and currently, for our own extended courtesy, they should have really been here. Because I was gonna make a recommendation for, conditional approval, but, now that they haven't been here to present, it's a little bit of a hesitation on my part.
yeah, and I shouldn't react that way, but it is a little frustrating.
Honestly, I don't have a problem, because again, I think we're gonna be covered from an end, but again, just from a procedural standpoint, I think we should have been here if that was that much concern about getting this plan forward.
Well, to the extent that the crossing issue is part of the plan, I would say, my thoughts are that the planning commission either gives a conditional approval and defers that final design issue to the staff, or that we not have any conditional approval at all, because I don't know that it really advances the project unless you're willing to defer to staff, because otherwise it's gonna have to come back to you anyway. To look at that crosswork, you might as well let the whole thing.
How much does it impede what they're looking to do based on the courtesy we sent to them? If we,
Well, what that arrangement allows is for them to work on the buildings. So everything out to the road is still entirely within the, this review process, so.
And they said they weren't gonna do any of the crosswalk or other improvements outside of physical construction of the building additions until sometime later in 2022. So I don't think not moving forward with that right now is gonna handicap them in any way to do what they need to do to at least get the buildings constructed, which they're already working on.
It sounds like all the stuff they wanted to now, we have no problem letting them do it. The question is, this is another piece that, as opposed to seeing verbiage and then getting a plan later, seems to be if you just wait to get a plan, you don't have to get into interpreting what they wrote and what they meant. That's right there.
I agree with that.
I think I'm in line with that too, they can continue moving with their important part, but it still comes back with those additional items. So you're not recommending conditional approval at this meeting,
Yeah,
have them come back next month?
you're right.
Yeah, that's my question, is the timing.
Are we 90 days out, meaning under the
Yeah,
MPC, you need
yeah.
to take action on it?
Well, our action could be to reject it unless they give time extension prior to council as well.
Yeah.
That's the standard procedure.
Yeah.
Do you know what the timing is?
It'll run out before, the next round of meetings,
Definitively,
Before the next planning
yes.
commission?
and before the following council as well.
So we would have to take action at some.
We should,
Right.
yeah,
Yes.
council should recommend rejection
Good catcher.
unless an extension offer is received from the school district.
Which I do not anticipate having a problem obtaining prior to next
You
Tuesday.
can probably get that by 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
What is the board want to do?
Right, sounds like we're getting close to a motion.
Does everyone else feel in that same way? I mean, what are the other thoughts around it and for granting the use?
I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with a crosswalk issue, but obviously there's concern about that. So the question is are they gonna address it before next meeting, or is it just a matter of that we let staff take care of it? So, and I'm okay with the staff.
Honestly, I don't
taking
think we wanna take care of it without your input.
care of it. Okay,
I think we would prefer to have your input on it.
well then I make a motion that we table the plan, subject to a time extension.
Table and deny.
Yeah, deny, I'm sorry.
Deny.
Deny. Subject to agreeing with time extension.
And the basis for denial would be outstanding items in the last review letter.
August 3rd.
So how does that affect the stuff they wanted to start now?
They've already started it, and they were already given permission to do that outside of the formal land development process, so it doesn't affect it.
It won't affect them
So that's not
unless,
in the plan that we're gonna postpone.
the arrangement we have in place will be unaffected by the planning commission motion unless they fail to deliver an extension letter before the council. In that case, council will have to reject it, and then the agreement is off the table.
Right.
But the agreement really, it already expresses that they're, operating at their own risk.
So my motion is that we reject the plan, unless a time extension is granted by the council meeting next week, subject to the items in the Harvey letter dated,
August 3rd.
August 3rd.
Second.
It's first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Next item, final land development plan, for the Highlands Barn.
I just wanted to give the planning commission a quick update that you granted conditional final plan approval at the July meeting, subject to multiple things, one of them being the zoning hearing board granting the variance for the drive aisle width. That hearing finally took place last Wednesday, the variance was granted, subject to multiple conditions, one of them being the landscaping that the planning commission wanted to see be put in. And they also put another condition on it that if that tree dies and has to be removed at any point in the future, that at that point, the driveway or drive aisle will then be widened to the 24 feet that's required. That's all I have for that one.
Any discussion around that? Sounds like that's moved along in the way that we discussed at the last meeting.
That will be off the agenda moving forward.
Hearing nothing else on that, we'll move on. Still sticking with the Highlands, in this case the apartments. We're gonna discuss and review the preliminary and final land development plan. And then potentially a motion. So,
Do you,
Sure, I can give it. Thank you. My name is Bill Fredericks. I'm with RGS Associates. I'm the land planner. I'm a civil engineer. Did the plan for this project. Just take a step back for the barn. Thank you again for your recommendation. We did implement some additional landscaping around that barn, and I think your recommendation went a long way with the zoning hearing board. So we appreciate saving a 60-inch tree. I know in our profession we put bulldozers on site and plow a lot of them down. That's one we really like to see. So we do appreciate that. We are in front of you for an apartment project. Actually, UP overall, just to give a little site context. Actually 4 in that one, maybe? Yeah, that one works. So kind of with the barn,
I went the wrong direction.
that one works.
Do you want the laser pointer?
Sure.
It's on this
Just kind of give context with the barn and the apartment project. So the barn is a 4-unit apartment, conversion of an existing barn. The reason that one's kind of ahead of this one is because they're anticipating doing construction this fall. As Michelle mentioned, we got our variance. We're just teeing up administrative items. We need to make a resubmission to clean up a couple note things and then sign and seal plans, post securities, that type of thing. So the anticipation with the barn is that would start, let's say, October in construction. Before you now is what we call the apartment project. Now we're very clever in our naming. It's 56 apartment units on the complex. So the main entrance, there's Cambridge Ave here. You come into the main entrance. You make a left on Bray Circle, and there's an existing knob. You can kind of tell it's been grass. There's some benches up there now. There's some woodland area over there as well. That's where this project is proposed. So the long unit here is, I believe, 41 units, and I believe the smaller one is 15. The architect is still working, so I believe that number is in flux, but the total number of units is 56. All independent living, so a little bit more, independent senior living, not assisted living, not dementia care, not that style. Independent living. There are 2 proposed underground parking garages, one in each building. The access to the one is off Bray Circle right here, and the other access is off Galesong Road right there. And then obviously surface parking as well. There's a slight reconfiguration of Galesong. If you're familiar with the site, Pine Tree actually is kind of underlaid right there. Pine Tree kind of loops there, and then Galesong loops into Pine Tree. So we're slightly proposed reconfiguration of the drive to make the access points work a little better with the apartment units. We are proposed, extension of sewer and water. There's the existing sewer and water on site. We did have a sewer meeting last week. I know the holidays getting me screwed up, but I believe we had a sewer meeting last week to talk through it. That's underway and in process of discussions with the authority to make sure we have capacity for the proposed project. Stormwater is handled. There's an existing basin right here. This is their big green area as you kind of come in, main entranceway line with the trees. There's an existing basin. It's kind of hard to tell unless you're kind of up on the hill, but it's grasses right now. We're just proposing an expansion of that, continue the grass seed, and actually in conversation and coordination with DEP, since our site's this side, we're proposing like a meadow mix kind of filtration on that side. Not necessarily required for the numbers, but in practicality, it makes a lot of sense as water kind of filters through there. So that's from our stormwater aspect side of it. We do have letters from the borough, from the county, and from the fire marshal. I do need to get a meeting with Troy just to talk through. He was just requesting a few fire hydrants, making sure the FGC was in the right location, so we don't take issue. I don't think we take issue with any of the comments, but feel we can address them, coordinate back and forth. We did ask for some waivers, which I know you guys like to run through one by one. With that, I guess I'll open it up to questions before I run through the waivers, unless you like to run through the waivers.
How many parking spaces?
So I believe it's 67 surface. Building 1, the long one, has 43 subsurface, and the smaller one has 15. So the smaller one has 1 per unit below, and then the other one has like a 2 extra underneath, I believe, and then the surface is 67.
125
Sounds right.
or somewhere.
Yes.
That meets ordinance.
Yes. Yeah, actually, if you want to go to the rendering real quick, I forgot to discuss site circulation. So just kind of connect through the site. Bray Circle, actually, you can tell in the rendering right here, the sidewalk comes here and ends within Bray Circle and goes into the main core building. So what we're proposing is an extension along our side of Bray Circle, connecting to the site, sidewalks throughout. So there is pedestrian accessibility through the rest of the community.
For the underground parking on building 1, is that the entire length of the building, or where does that stop?
I believe it is the entire length of the building, yes.
And can you discuss the elevation on the, I'll call it the backside where
Yep.
drive B is shown?
Great question. So on the front, we're like a 3-story unit. On the back, we're a 4-story because you got that underground parking.
Right.
So in the front, you'll come in the first level, you'll see 3. from the back side, you'll essentially see 4, because you have the underground parking and 3 above
So that will run the entire length of.
Yes. Yep. There is actually a site amenity outdoor space plan there for the residents as well. So you kind of come down to the lower level, and then you have an outdoor area. Kind of looking, this slopes down like a 4-to-1, right? Maybe 3-to-1, I think, to the basement. So you actually sit up and get some decent views, especially as you're being in the upper apartments there.
How about the storage building? How many stories is it?
For building 2, same concept. So you have 3 along the, what's it, cul-de-sac side, I guess, the parking lot side, and then you have 4 along Gale's Line. And we-
So is that round building on the right, is that the other barn?
This one?
In case.
Yeah. So this is our proposed barn from the previous project. Yeah.
Okay,
I know the aerial's a little blurry.
so the other barn is way off the map, it's the barn that's on the other side of the road.
Oh, I don't know if the Highlands does that one. You talk about the one that goes up all
Yeah.
yeah, that one's
Wyomissing Road.
yeah, that one's pretty much.
What's the length of building 1?
That's a good question. Michelle, do you mind going to the layout plan? I want to say it's 7. That one. Is it on there? Make it a scale for you. The length of building 1.
Yeah,
Make it a scale for you.
Yeah. Was there any discussion with the fire marshal about a single access point for an underground parking for that length?
So we do have a review letter from the fire marshal, and again, I do need to have an on-site meeting. At this point, he has not indicated any concern about the length or accessibility to the building. There are, per the residential or architectural code, there are certain access points that need to be, fire escapable, and certain points that need to be accessible. So we've been in coordination and contact with them to make sure those requirements are met. His initial feedback is most importantly FTC and locating that and coordinating that with the MEP to make sure there's a hydrant within MEP. He requested some additional hydrants around. If you want to go to the grading plan, actually, Michelle, sorry, I think 10? 9 or 10 maybe? That one works. So there is some level areas behind the building. It's not all slope. If there's a true emergency situation and they needed to jump the curb and get back there, they could. Ideally, you serve from the front of the building, and that's how we've shown our training.
And my concern was more along the lines of one access into the garage with a length of whatever it is, 400 feet. If you had any concerns with reaching the 4 reaches of that garage
Yeah,
in the parking area itself.
in the building.
Right.
That has not been discussed.
Well, I guess the fire marshal's already asked them, right?
Yes, we do have a review letter.
It's mostly going to be a building code issue, and
Yeah.
then site.
I was thinking of it in the context of, like a cul-de-sac length limit that you would see for a residential street.
Yeah.
The reason for that is accessibility for fire apparatus.
Yeah, the underground parking garages always have to have air circulation and
Yeah.
stuff, so I'm sure that the architect's gonna address all that.
Yeah, we've been talking about the vents are the biggest one you get. You gotta make sure you don't bury the vents.
Yeah.
They should kind of make a grade along the building.
I assume the building's gonna be sprinklered, correct?
Yes, I can't imagine they can't.
What's that square area at the end of the cul-de-sac?
Oh, so they're planning electric and potentially a generator. for that
Okay.
Which should come to health safety.
Mechanical, okay,
Yeah.
alright.
Yeah, it will be a screen mechanical area.
I think I noticed on your list of requests for waiver, sidewalk on both sides of the street.
Yes,
Can you let us know to which areas that pertains?
sure.
Sorry, mouse is trigger happy,
No worries.
which
The layout's fine. This one works. So there's actually a few areas. So Gale Song currently does not have any sidewalks. We'll continue that theme as well. So it applies along the existing frontage along here. People currently, Gale Song serves the units down here and will serve the barn. That's a limited number of people. The other areas are we kind of redo Pine Tree, reconfigure it to make it an appropriate intersection here. We're not proposing sidewalks, doesn't have it now, we'll propose it as well. So the main area is probably Gray Circle. We have it on the one side circulating residents, there's none on the existing side, and we continue that theme as well. We do create a new intersection here that creates accessibility into the main core of the campus is like right here where we kind of front entrance is. So if a resident wants to use this and they want to, walk, they either come out the low side of the building, which you're probably not going to do, they're probably going to come out the front, use the sidewalk entrance across Gray Circle, and then get to the same front of the building. So the waiver is really along Gray Circle, and then I would say existing Gale Song and existing Pine Tree.
Not Cambridge.
No. If there was any sidewalk improvements done, that would have been done with the Villa project, which I wasn't, they refer to it as the Villas, I was not involved in that one, so I don't know the extent of what was done there.
Because you remember we discussed that,
at length.
that needed to be agreed to in order to do, something pretty quickly. I mean, it was like shovels in the ground the next day. Remember that?
Has to do with their NPDES.
Yeah.
And I think the agreement was to defer.
Yeah,
They were not excused from
so,
You're talking about Old Cambridge.
yes.
Yeah, it was deferred until such time as it's gonna be done on the other side of the street, they would have to do it at, the Highlands would then have to do it when the borough mandated it was required.
So it's, is not in any way inconsistent with what was discussed or agreed at that. Thanks.
But the only thing we were just talking about was about looping the sidewalk, not the whole frontage, but bringing it where you come around and turn, you should go north on that plan.
So it ends here, but it doesn't cross
Oh,
over, come
cross
up
and
driveway
link to
and
the other
connect
side.
to here.
So you bring it down there and link it with that.
So at least your whole area then is included.
If you go to the grading plan real quick, plan wise, I don't think that's an issue. My only concern,
Well, you could bring it up,
You could cross it.
then bring it up
Yeah.
on the west side and cross it up there.
bring it here and
Yeah.
down this way.
Yeah, just so it's just so somebody coming down that walk isn't walking the whole way around the complex. You got a smaller building.
I think we can accommodate
But yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we don't want you to put it on that 3-to-1 slope.
that. You can notice that.
In terms of the waivers, neither Jim or I feel that the plan overall, based off the review letter, is at this point that it would be appropriate for the planning commission to recommend any type of conditional plan approval. So the question is, do you wanna take action on the waivers in the meantime? Or do you wanna wait until you have a revised plan with less review comments, the sewer issue is resolved, and then take action on everything at once?
So there is a revised plan forthcoming.
There's going to need to be,
Yes, you
yes.
have.
Yep.
Makes more sense
Yeah.
to wait till you see the whole thing.
I agree. I agree.
Just as a lead time item, if I could just ping on a couple of them, just because it might affect our design depending on, or our submission items depending on how you guys feel about them. I guess the couple in particular, was intersection separation on Gale Song. So we currently have, we show 145 feet. I think we're actually making the situation better. So currently, this waiver is between Gray Circle and Pine Tree. It's 145 feet from, I think, center line. The requirement is 200. Currently, the way Gale Song swings in and Pine Tree is actually the one that connects into it. I think there's only 125 feet now. So we're actually taking it from 125 to 145, but we're still short of the 200. Part of the reason for that is, one, it works with getting some parking over here. Two, as you can see, we're trying to save some wooded area there. Any further we push this intersection, one, if we push it further right, sorry, east, I think it is, to meet that 200, Pine Tree is still gonna have to connect, because you've got that cottage, to the southeast here. And then two, any further we push it this way, we'll start eating into that existing tree area. So,
You're aligning the center lines right now, aren't you?
Yes, we are.
On both drives.
Yes,
And that's a four-way.
it is a four-way
set
stop.
up.
It has a stop, yes.
What is that sign internal speed of cars?
15.
15.
Yep, it's 15 everywhere.
Was there any application to the number of vehicles on the entire project that relates back to all these things? It sounds like if you're walking, if you're 10 in the car with your feet versus doing 40, some of these restrictions are based on more traffic, so the less traffic, the more you have the ability ways of.
Yeah, actually agreed, and that's actually another, as part of the justification we use for another waiver, we are asking a waiver on the traffic impact study. We did do a trip gen analysis, which is a very simple, basic, like how many trips are going in and out in your peak hour. From that trip gen analysis, we determined it's 13, I think it's 8 going, 5 coming in the morning, and vice versa in the evening, or it might have it backwards, but it's like 13 peak hour trips, which is very little when you do it. 13 vehicles in a peak hour trip. It's pretty de minimis. So to your point, again, it is independent living, so they are more mobile. They can still go to the store, but it's still part of the community. So there's not real the intent to go places. You're still part of the community. So yes, traffic speeds are 15. It is fully intended to be a walkable community. Highlands provides many of the services and amenities that these residents are looking for.
The peak hours between 4 and 6, it's the PM peak, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, we actually, I think we did a PM and an AM, and I think they're just the inverse of each other.
Okay.
And is your reason for bringing this up to see if there's any objections?
Yes, it's that one, yeah, and I understand we don't wanna vote on that, this is the next one as well, it's the impact studies, section as well. And yes, because I'm just looking for your feedback, because if you're leaning one way or the other, you know, especially the impact studies, I guess let me explain that one. So there is a section when you're 50 or more units, we are at 56, so we just fall into this category. There's a list of impact studies. They include utility impacts, they include recreation, fiscal, historic, environmental, and hydrologic. We have provided information on all of these to some level of extent, but not necessarily a full-blown study. So a fiscal impact, for instance, talks about impact to school districts. Well, we have 0 impact to school districts because we have no kids living there. You know, for like a utility impact, we have to do sewer and water. We are making those capacity requests, and we need to work on getting our 537. Hydrologic, we've done a wetland study and we've done a geology study. So we have to get an NPDES permit. So we've done a PIND. Like we've done all certain aspects of these studies, but we haven't necessarily done a full-blown, you know, historic and archaeological resource study. You wouldn't anticipate those impacts there. It's already kind of a developed site, right? They've already put a road through. So, you know, we feel that we've addressed these studies on at least some level and have, you know, provided information on each, but we haven't necessarily, in defense of the ordinance, haven't provided a specific study that each one is requested. So that's kind of like a lead time item.
So how many of those studies that appear based on the type of plan that the Highlands has been developing for 30 years are basically not applicable to a giant apartment complex in the middle of Philadelphia? There's the same rules for that as it is for this one. How many of those are basically extraneous to the real issues that you mentioned, the permits for the PDES, those issues?
Sure, and I think it's more of the level of detail that one would require. I mean, I go back to the fiscal analysis just because that's an easy one. You know, it talks about like police impact, and you can do a study for police impact. I'm not saying there will be 0 police impact, but like the Highlands has a security team. So if you get that phone call in the middle of the night, who's walking around with a flashlight in my backyard, that call first goes to the Highlands team, and the security team checks it out. There will certainly, hopefully not, but there will probably be police calls at some point, right? Because that's what residents Yeah, and so, agreed, but it is an independent living facility, so they're a little bit more able-bodied. I don't mean to minimize it either, but, you know, it's not intensive care, it's not dementia, it's not assisted living, this is the independent living wing, so, I agree.
Probably
That's-
the only two I would care about are what we're doing in traffic and the utility one because there's a sewer issue. The other ones because it's a developed site that, well, we're adding 60 units, there's 300 and some out there already. And the site's been, pretty much most of the site is, other than the little wooded area here, has previously been graded or disturbed in some manner, so a lot of it doesn't play, but the ordinance requires it, so technically they need to be.
Is this
It
any,
seemed to me, one that you didn't mention, it seemed to me that since the streets you mentioned there, if we ask for a show of hands, how many people have been up Gale Song or Great Drive, the answer would probably be nobody. And the real question is, fire, police, when you drive in there in the middle of the night, if you don't know where you're going, you're not gonna find that place. So really, signage, how do the police and fire respond to some place that they've never been to before because they've never been called? So that would be my concern. That's probably not one of the things you asked for a waiver for. but
No.
It's also probably not one of the things you prepared for either because it is so huge now. Nobody's been there. They could be driving around that place for 15 minutes while the place, well, you probably see the flames, I guess.
That's actually a whole other conversation through Next Gen 911. That's a whole addressing GIS process the borough works on with the county outside of land development approval. To make sure that when a call comes in, the site's addressed correctly, that when Burke's Emergency Services gets that call and, you know, the address is given or the GPS coordinates come through, depending on how the call's made and who's making it, that's completely outside of this process.
And I'll say the Highlands wants that just as much as you want.
We actually worked with the Highlands on the villas to readdress not just the name of the road, but all of the units for the purpose of 911 response.
And I can say specifically to address the fire, I know Troy asked for a knockbox, and for the barn project, he wants a new chain, new knockbox, so that when they arrive on site and buy that access, they know where they're going, they have the keys, they have all that stuff.
is this in a traffic impact fee area?
We typically say pay a fee based off of what the study would cost.
But we don't have a zone.
Study, we don't have ordinance.
And are you doing a study, traffic study?
No, that's one of the waivers we're asking for.
It sounded like 13 cars, not.
So we did a very simple like trip gen analysis,
Right.
and that's like the first step of a traffic study. Yeah, it's very,
Jim, are you comfortable with
With,
that, with the trip
Well, I guess,
study?
what's,
with the fee in lieu of the study, yes.
so that's where you're going is, you know, we need to know that the utilities are adequate, that the sewage is, you know, there's capacity in the transportation lines. And on the traffic, you're recommending that as a condition of waiver of the study requirement, there be a contribution made to the borough for future traffic-related expenditures.
Like all the green light yellow ones we're doing right now for 680 grand.
You know, we could use that money
All of it,
towards our.
it could be part of the match
So
of
we're
the
gonna
signal
charge the
upgrades.
Highlands $680,000 not to do a study.
And we have a grant, so we don't need a
Is that a motion?
$680,000.
Do we have liability insurance for it?
so, I understood the waiver of a study, I would say studies around 10, and we could be more, but, yeah, that's about,
90,000 more?
yeah. Now, you could get into if further improvements are needed based on the study, but again, 13 trips, I truly doubt.
What was the waiver for our,
I don't have any issues with the waivers as they're written, but I would like to hear about the clear site triangle. Just show where that is on the plan.
Yep, absolutely. Sorry, Michelle.
That's okay.
Yep, that was. There is. So the buildings are all set on the setback lines, I guess that's maybe not, actually, they're all set in the setback lines. So the clear side triangle waiver is related to building 2 right here. There's dry seat, it's at the garage. It's offset from the setback line, but crammed up. I think this is building setback based on the parking lot. So it's crammed as far north as we can. Right here is where the waiver is. We have 50 feet from if you go from the face of the garage
Right.
to the edge of the driveway.
Oh, yeah, sure, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that you didn't have adequate sight distance.
Yeah, so there's
That's all.
Yeah, so we do another level of study where we do like the PennDOT, so if you're at a stop sign, looking left, looking right, to make sure you have what they call safe site stopping distance, and that's a PennDOT requirement.
That does have a stop sign too.
Yes, and I'm not stopping too.
The large one's the 145, so those two separation, I don't have an issue with that, given the small down traffic, the lower speeds. Certainly the additional ones are pretty just self-explanatory,
I think talking about it.
that's my personal feedback.
Thank you.
If you use the numbers that we use for Arrow, they paid $50,000 for 83 units, so it would come to $36,145. Using the same ratio. Just throwing a number out
What would the cost of the study was?
there. Well, it was because of the cost of the study, I figured there was gonna be some improvements that were gonna be done as a result of it. So that the amount agreed to was $50,000 for 83 units. So we're just taking 60, because you do have 4 across the street. And using the same ratio, it's 36, 144, 58, I rounded it to 145.
If it's not something you'll make a motion on today, can I speak to the Highlands about that specific number?
Yeah, it sounds like we're working toward everybody getting comfortable and on the same page today.
Yeah.
Is there anything else out of these waivers you need an answer on that would determine time frame?
Those were like the big lead items. We were asking a waiver for curbs along both sides of the street, and I don't think any of the streets. The parking lots do have vertical curbs, which is what we're proposing. I don't believe any of the existing streets have vertical curbs, so we would continue that theme. Sidewalks, we discussed where those were. This is we don't know point without a crossing, although I'll have to watch how we do this down Drive A, although we still won't have a crossing, so I think that waiver is still applicable. But we'll find, I'm sorry, I'm referring to 310C. Inlets placed along the curb portion of the curb within intersections. We don't have a crosswalk there at the moment, and our low points hit at the curb portions.
Well, you bring up the west side, it won't cross.
Yes, I don't think that'll change, so. Those were the big ones, I think.
I do have a question real quick about the vertical curb. Are there any sidewalks, where are the sidewalks located in respect to the edge of the road?
They're offset with a green strip. Michelle, you want to zoom in right there? That would be a dimension.
I'm gonna try,
8 feet off.
Okay.
8 feet off, 5 foot sidewalk.
I just didn't want to make sure they weren't going to bring this to the road without curbing.
And they're all private streets anyway.
Yes, they're all private streets. Yeah.
Are there any other waivers that we should discuss?
I appreciate the time. I think those were my main ones.
Thank you.
based off of that, I expect that we will see you at the October planning commission meeting.
Sounds good. We will make a resubmission in the meantime. Again, thank you to the barn. That plan will be coming in, ready for signatures, and hopefully we'll start in October.
Sounds good.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, this one. Yeah.
So we got something, August 31st.
Yes.
August 31st. I'll have to do something next week.
Next item on the agenda is Storage World.
Just before we get started, I'm going to recuse myself on this. I work for the same company, so I'll just step back. So you guys make a decision.
just to give everybody a little bit of background, you may recall you had already granted this plan conditional plan approval some ways back.
Early 2020?
Yeah, I think it was pre-COVID actually. One of the issues that Storage World had to work through was relocating an overhead electric line. Unfortunately, the amount of money, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here.
No.
The amount of money that, it was met at, correct?
Correct.
Wanted Storage World to pay to relocate that line was obscene. So because of that, they had to revise the plan to show a new layout that would not require that line to be moved. I'm sad it worked out that way because there were multiple variances this plan required from the zoning hearing board that would not have been required because the plan now actually conforms with the zoning ordinance as is. Go figure. So on that note,
Good afternoon, Daryl Jenkins with Spot Stevens and McCoy. As I think Michelle gave a very good summary of what's going on with the plan. We do have a review letter back from McCarthy Engineering, which has basically been whittled down just to administrative items. There are 3 items that are outstanding. One is to get a new approval from the Berks County Conservation District, obviously because the site plan has changed. That required an amendment to the existing approvals that were granted. And also there was one comment regarding some minor grading that is happening in the right of way. We had actually addressed that comment with the last plan. And there was an email from PennDOT basically saying that they had no issue with what was happening. And we did provide that over to Craig a little bit earlier today.
Greg's on vacation, so he won't see it until next
See it.
Tuesday. So if he's the only one you sent it to, it's sitting there till next week.
Okay. So basically, we're down to what you would term as administrative items, signing the plans and making sure that we have the improvements agreement in place in accordance with the borough standards.
Would this project be affected at all by any of the proposed reconstruction of 422?
I don't believe that it would, Chris. As it stands, I think we're completely contained within our property. And as far as I know, there are no impacts to the project based on those improvements.
So what do we need to do?
reaffirm/affirm, since it's a revised plan, the previously granted conditional final plan approval.
Motion is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
The draft ordinance was one thing I did not have pulled up in advance, because I had so many tabs open in Adobe that I was afraid it was gonna shut down my Adobe.
So next on the agenda, we're gonna revisit the historic tourism overlay district.
Yes,
I remember
Chris, feel free to jump in and interject. The last time the planning commission reviewed this, there was a request to add, more language regarding, I believe it was festivals, fundraising, special events, and barn weddings.
Yeah. Festivals, fundraising, special events, and barn weddings. That's what my
So as you can see from, permitted uses and items 3, 4, and 7, Chris has attempted to define those based off of feedback that you all gave us at the July meeting.
I chose, for purposes of drafting, not to add these to the definition section of this because I wanted to keep these definitions specific to this permitted use in the overlay district. I guess my concern was sometimes there are unintended consequences when you drop new definitions into the ordinance, and I wanted to just tweak it enough to deal with this use within the overlay district.
So based off the revised version and the definitions that Chris has added, if the planning commission is so inclined, we'd request that you make a recommendation to council to move forward with sending this to the Berks County Planning Commission for their review and comment, as well as advertisement and future adoption.
In addition to those three definitions which were requested by the planning commission, there is also a new definition of paved area, and I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. That was something that we had discussed at a staff level as something that would be helpful to deal with porous paving. When porous paving is proposed, it is still considered paved area in the absence of express language in the ordinance to give it some special treatment. So the proposed amendment to the definition of paved area would give porous paving special treatment under the definition of paved area, so that it would only count as 1/2 of the area of non-porous paving for purposes of the application of the paved area regulations that apply in each of the zoning districts. I don't know if there's an example that you can think of.
Is that sort of the standard? Is that consistent with what is normally?
I don't know, this one's a new one on me.
I've never seen it allowed in
Yeah.
Canada, so I understand the intent, and I think, I'm happy.
You can have a lot of
about
Chester County ordinances, they have it, where they'll actually give you the ratio of the surface area of the, so if you're using like that honeycomb stuff that's like 63% asphalt, they'll let you count just 63%. We kinda wanted, if people were doing this, to do it and take care of the stormwater. So that's why basically wanted to, they had to store the 100-year storm, and then it doesn't count. Well, it counts 50%. We've been getting a lot of requests on these pool permit backyard plans, especially in the R1 district, where people want to put, that was sort of the pool thing too. Historically, pools were counted as, the water surface of the pool was counted as a building. Makes no sense. Michelle and I argued about this for a decade before we were an engineer, about why it was, and finally we fixed it. But so in this case, the people were, they're doing that. You're putting a pool and you're putting pavers, porous paving around the pool, trying to be conscious and be good to your neighbors, and you're not getting any type of credit for putting that porous paving in instead of just putting concrete or asphalt or something like that.
Yeah, and just to be clear, if you use porous paving, but you don't design it to accommodate the stormwater requirement in this section, you'll be treated under the normal paved area regulation. In order to get credit for the reduced paved area, you must comply with the stormwater planning requirement of this section.
And there's also a required maintenance plan agreement that the property owner must execute, the borough executes, and it's recorded so that it runs with the life of the property. Just to make sure that porous pavement is maintained so that it continues to function properly moving forward, which typically involves sweeping it.
And both this amendment to the building coverage and to paved area have nothing at all to do with the Stolzfus property. These are, it's just a matter of convenience that we had an ordinance under consideration. We had some technical issues with building coverage and paved area that we had discussed dealing with at some point, and now it seemed like the opportune time to throw these into the ordinance.
And the important one is dealing with the stormwater, right?
Yeah.
That's the.
So how much more of Wyomissing would fall under this ordinance besides that property?
All of them.
Okay, so you're talking about the overlay district?
No, this specific historic tourism overlay district.
Yeah,
How
it's-
much, other than Stolzfus property, what?
That's, I believe that's it. I believe that's gonna be it. I mean, we had
So
originally,
it's really the historic tourism, Stolzfus overlay district.
you could look at it that way, yes. I mean, we had talked about maybe having a stone house added into it, but then decided that, again, there could be unintended consequences by making other areas eligible for this, so, since we were really trying to deal with the Stoltzfus property, we narrowed the eligibility criteria so that it will really only apply there.
But that would be used as a model going forward possibly?
Yeah, I mean hypothetically, if the borough wanted to do something or, you know, had a proposal to do something with one of the other very old properties that border on the borough's parkland, yeah, this could be a model for how to address that. But at this point, there are no specific proposals on the table.
And this hasn't been sent.
Not yet, no, that's, would be the next.
I'm curious to see what they have to say.
So do we?
No, you know, what's interesting is, Michelle just heard today from Elam Stoltzfus that the county says they can share the use of the county parking lot. So that seems to me to be a pretty strong indication that the county is going to cooperate and support the project.
Do we need to act on this today?
I'd
Preferably.
like to keep it moving, yes, please.
The only action is just recommendation for submission to the county.
And any comments you may have with the revised draft.
Okay. Motion.
We have a motion? Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Before we wrap up, is there any old business to discuss? How about new business? Michelle, any new business?
I have none.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.